Hey, what's up, you guys? It's Bloody Jacob here to bring you my weekly review of The Strain. Just got back home from school and I'm, ready and set, still kind of adjusting, going into the third week of my final year of high school. But anyway, let's get right into it. This episode is entitled Loved Ones. And this episode wasn't quite as hectic as the ones the past couple weeks have been. It's not like another Creatures of the Night or something like that. But this episode, some critics, I noticed like one in particular that writes reviews for each episode on IGN. He just has it all wrong, man. I mean, he's like so negative, and like anything that is slower in character building, he just hates on. It's really annoying. But enough about IGN. I thought this episode it wasn't one of the best. Well, could have been actually. I mean, it was just really another solid episode. I mean, The Strain is so consistent from week to week, and this one is really no exception to me. This week we only seen a couple different characters doing a couple different things. Of course, with Kelly's disappearance last week, we of course knew that Ephraim would be out looking for her. And that was the main primary focus of this episode. And, of course, Zach, he actually managed to put her phone number into the computer, and they, actually found the location of where her phone was. And, it was just like dropped on the side of her car where her car was parked. And, so eventually, Ephraim went out there and he found like this hobo who had the phone. And she, he eventually got her to lead him to where she picked it up, which of course is, dropped right next to Kelly's car, like I said earlier. And so the trail was pretty much cold for Ephraim after that. He would just be guessing. And, throughout the episode, we were just, we basically seen basically flashbacks of what happened to Kelly exactly. I mean, because we basically know that her boyfriend had come home, and of course, after he had been transformed at Walmart, he had come home to her and attacked her. As we knew, because he had the mark on his face and things like that from someone trying to defend themselves, and that was from Kelly, of course. So we seen flashbacks of what exactly happened with that. We seen the boyfriend attacking her, and she narrowly avoided the tongue, and she hit his face a few times with a few objects that were in the kitchen. But one of the worms actually managed to get like right into her eye, like right around here. So yeah, it's real. Like when I seen the worm going right into her eye, I was like, oh yeah, wait, she might actually get out of this way. Oh, okay, there it is. She's done. And I know, I'm not sure how many fans there are of Kelly actually, but Natalie Brown, I like the actress a lot. I know her mostly from Being Human Season 2 when she played Julia. I know I mentioned that pretty much every time I talk about her. But, so yeah, I'm kind of on the side of hoping she sticks around. So when I seen that worm go into her, I was like, oh, damn. Yeah, because that just means, our time on the show is, even more limited when that happens. But, so it was really interesting because we've seen the flashbacks and, of her, like, slowly transforming into a vampire. And, she's just kind of wandering around, like, walking on the streets. She's just slowly, more and more, losing herself to it. And she even tried to track Zach down because she had, went unconscious in her car, which is why she got out and dropped the phone, which is where the hobo and Ephraim found it. And, she actually wandered into the school, like, late at night, like, way after hours, where she's a teacher, asking the principal where Zach is. And, the principal tries to call the cops on her, saying, I think she's been in some kind of accident, because at that point, she's looking, really pale, and her eyes are red, like, or at least around the certain part of it. And, she eventually just wanders off out of the building again. And you could think, oh yeah, well, she's turning into this, so she probably forgets, what time it is. But really, I think it was her vampire instinct slowly starting to kick in. Like, you know how Abraham is illustrated quite a lot in the past episodes recently. That once a person is transformed, they eventually try to track down their loved ones and kill them, or they go to what they remember the most, or something like that. So, of course, I think Kelly trying to find Zach was more about the vampire part of her trying to hunt him, find him and kill him. So, it was pretty eerie when she was, walking around doing that. I mean, it was really simple, but I really liked the way Natalie Brown, showed how she was losing herself more and more, to more, less and less expressionless and stuff like that. So I thought that was pretty interesting, and it eventually leads to a, pretty big reveal of where it ended up leading her, because she's walking around. Then, oh wait, hold on, I almost skipped an entire part here. Her friend, I forget her friend's name, but she has that thicker Brooklyn accent. Kelly ended up going over to her house, and she had been missing for a few hours, so she was like, oh, Kelly, you're here, whatever. But Kelly and the friend's son ends up coming down the stairs, and Kelly just slowly walks over to him, and the boy looks a little confused and stuff like that. And she just shoots out the ton and just gets the child right in the neck. Wow, and she, completely drains him and kills him. So I'm not sure if, is the point of infecting him, or if she completely drained him and killed him. I'm not sure. Either way, it's pretty, it's a little unnerving to see what happened to a child. I mean, we've already seen that little girl, earlier in the season, as a vampire. But, it was a different case, actually seeing the child, get that thing into their neck and then drop down just, dead. So, yeah, I mean, it really makes the show feel more realistic that, that children aren't necessarily off limits. Because, of course, they wouldn't be in the real world if this is actually happening. So it makes it feel all the more authentic and, grounded. This could actually happen, that kids aren't completely safe. So it makes me worry about Zach, Ephraim, and Kelly's son. It makes me worry about him a lot. So, yeah, that was pretty disturbing. Well, I've seen stuff like that before. Maybe not vampire tongue going into a kid's neck, but I'm kind of numb to different things like this. But it was still pretty surprising to see them outright show that happen to a child. A child I give the thumbs up for. I mean, of course, I don't enjoy seeing that, but I enjoy seeing it in the idea that, no one is safe, like I said. So that was pretty cool, in my opinion. And of course, she does the same thing to her friend. She gives her a ton in the neck, then completely drains her, kills her, turns her, I'm not sure. Yeah, she turned both of them. I don't know why I didn't think of that sooner. Because, Ephraim eventually goes to the friend's house later, and he has one of the silver bullet guns, and he goes into the basement and eventually finds the Kelly's friend and the friend's son kind of huddled up together as vampires in the basement and stuff like that. And they start getting up, and he's kind of hesitant, he's kind of emotional about it, but he shoots them both in the head with it, and he puts them both down, which is pretty cool. And we got probably one of the best acting scenes out of the series right here, because we see in Kelly's friend's hands was I'm guessing Kelly's necklace that she would wear, and some of her hair on it, but of course that's just decaying from her head when the friend tried to wrestle her to the ground after she killed her son. And so when Ephraim finds that necklace with the transformed friend, he kind of assumes the worst, that she was either killed or she was turned, and she's just wandering around aimlessly as a vampire. And it's basically just Ephraim realizing she's pretty much a lost cause now. She's gone one way or the other. So we see him looking at the necklace, and he just starts breaking down, and he cries. And yeah, it's just really, I felt really bad for Ephraim here. I don't enjoy seeing him in pain. I love the character though, so it's great to see these emotional moments for him. It just deepens how much you care about him, and I really feel for the guy. Ephraim is a great main character so far, definitely my favorite character on the show, and so that was a little heartbreaking to see him react like that, and now he knows that his ex-wife is pretty much gone. So, and as we know, it wasn't really his choice to get divorced in the first place. It was because Kelly had thought he devoted too much time to his work and not enough time for the family, which may have been a little bit true. But we've seen Kelly is trying to feel bad about what she did to him, before everything started happening. So there's always a chance that maybe they could have worked it out after all. But of course now that's not going to happen, and even though Ephraim has a lot of feelings for Nora, he still said to Kelly's friend in last week's episode that disappeared that, I love my wife. She is the mother of my son, or mother of my child. I'll do whatever it takes to find her. So it shows that he still really cares about her deeply. So it's just all the more wrenching to see him, break down like that about her fate. And as far as Kelly herself goes, eventually we see her just wandering around aimlessly on the streets, and eventually we hear the Master's voice inside her head. And, Kelly, come here. He's like, Kelly, come to me, or something like that. And so she just goes into the sewers, and we basically see her find the Master, and the Master confronts her, she's basically a fully transformed vampire now. And, she's kind of going like that when he shows up, and the Master says something like, rejoice in your fate, or rejoice in your fate, or like rejoice for your fate. And it just kind of cuts off right there. And, as far as that goes, I think it's kind of obvious what the Master did to her there. I'm sort of predicting that he probably did what he did to Thomas back when the war was going on all those years ago. I sort of think he's probably making Kelly into one of the more powerful vampires that he controls, like he did to Thomas. So I imagine Kelly will probably be on that same power level as Thomas, and of course the Master knows that'll be a very, very good weapon to use against Ephraim and the rest of the group, physically, of course, and emotionally. That'll just, that could ruin Ephraim when he sees her like that. And it could be even more torture for him, since she can probably still talk to him too. So that's gonna be quite the scene when that happens. So yeah, it's gonna be pretty interesting. But I could be wrong, but I think that's my prediction. I think it's kind of obvious that that's the way they're going, and I'm really excited to see when that happens. And the other part of the episode is mainly dedicated to Fett and Dutch, the internet hacker. They went to Palmer's because they wanted to put him down after, after knowing of his connection to Thomas and what's going on all around the city. And, they basically get surrounded by the guards he has there, like the black guy, I forget his name. And they basically strip him of the weapons, and they force Dutch to go in there and talk to Palmer alone, and they basically have a pretty heated conversation. They kind of tell each other off. I can't remember the exact words, but the actress who plays Dutch is fairly good too. I like her. We don't know too much about her yet, but I sort of like the chemistry we're seeing between Fett and Dutch. It's like a butting of heads, like they kind of go at each other left and right, but I sort of think there could be something between them at some point. That's just the romantic, emotional part of me thinking there. But so that is, I like seeing the relationship. I like when they spend time together. It seems like they can make a pretty good pair, or at least work together pretty well at some point. And Fett's starting to care about her a little bit more in general. And so basically, the guards take Fett and Dutch, and they think they're just going to be taken out and shot. But the guard, actually, the main assistant for Palmer, the black guy, lets him go. And he basically tells him, I know what's going on. I know it's not right what he's doing or what he's connected to, and I'm not going to stop the people who are just trying to make it right. And Fett tries to say, so why don't you join us? Why don't you join our cause and help make things right? and he still refuses, but he lets him go at least. So that was kind of, sort of surprising. Yeah, I really have to look into the camera more. I mean, sorry about that. I'm usually looking into, like, the picture I see of myself here. So, I apologize. But, so that part was pretty interesting, and I don't think I missed too much more, except when they all arrived back at the pawn shop, where Abraham has them all holed up, as their little headquarters. Of course, Ephraim arrives back, and he's really just empty, really, emotionally. And, Zach asks if he found, Kelly, and, he says, he didn't. But, Abraham and the rest of them sort of get, based on the look on his face, they found nothing, and it's kind of more hopeless now. But it was cool, like, before, because earlier in the episode, like, Abraham basically voiced that he completely understood that Ephraim going out there and trying to find her and settle whatever she is, is something he had to do. And, that sort of makes me think back to the earlier part of the season, or the first episode or two, where we've seen that Abraham has that heart in a jar somewhere. So I imagine that's someone he loved quite a bit. And, we only heard a little bit about that before, so it'll be interesting to see the parallel when we find out more about what happened with whoever that was in that jar. So, yeah. Again, I felt really bad for Ephraim. And, Fed and Dutch come back, and, Ephraim's sort of, like, in one of the worst moods possible. So it's, like, really don't fuck with him. I apologize for my language. But, and Fed comes down, and Dutch, and Ephraim just tells Dutch, oh, you're still here? And, Fed tries to defend her, he's saying, she's here like the rest of us. And, then Dutch basically kind of snaps a little, and she just basically walks out and leaves. And, Fett tries to get her to stay, but, she basically tells all of them to screw themselves. But I'm sure we'll see her again. And, Fett's kind of angry at Ephraim for, saying that to her and causing her to, leave the group and things like that. So they had, like, a little, Fett and Ephraim had, like, a little bit of a standoff. There was some tension there. And, Fett, it's kind of obvious that if they actually fought, Fett, chances are Fett would probably win that. But, I don't know, with Ephraim in that kind of mood after what he just went through, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he could give Fett one hell of a fight at that point, too, but, so, that tension was pretty cool. We didn't really see much from, Abraham and Nora in this episode. They're basically hanging out down in the basement while everyone else was out. But, we did see Nora embrace Ephraim, and, they kind of hugged tightly when he came back, because, it's kind of obvious that he didn't really find anything that's hopeless with Kelly and things like that. So that, that was nice. And I'm pretty sure the episode ended with the part I already talked about with the Master. Looked like he's turning into Kelly into something, more powerful like Thomas and stuff. So, we also didn't see him this week, but it's okay. So yeah, I think I covered most of the episode, and I'll definitely catch you guys for next week's episode. And again, just the show is fantastic so far. I mean, I'm really finding most episodes to be fairly consistent. I say that every single week, but every single week it remains true. It's definitely my favorite new show, and definitely one of my favorite shows currently on right now, for no question. So, I'm happy it's renewed for season 2. I look forward to that. They're, starting to film that in November, from what I hear. So, yeah, I can't wait for the last 3 episodes of this season. It should be pretty intense, man. Pretty exciting. So, yeah, I'll catch you guys for next week's review of The Strain, and, peace.